Seems there is a message coming through. There's been a lot of chatter and a lot of downloads in, gosh, the last couple of weeks, and particularly in the last couple of days. I've had some very, very intense, interesting conversations with people, and things that have happened. Hondo and I were in North Cheyenne Mountain the other day, and I kept stumbling over rocks, which, on a trail isn't all that uncommon. It's pretty common to hit rocks. It's just not common to continually stumble on them. And I kept kind of stubbing my toe. And about the third or fourth time, I said, okay, what is that? Is this so obvious as to say, dash not your foot upon a stone, or whatever that thing is, talking about that I believe it's something to do with angels, that basically you won't fall or you will not be harmed or something like that. And the irony of it is that I was thinking that was must be the message, and that was actually the precursor to Hondo and I started running. About maybe a half an hour, 45 minutes later, we started running, and we were maybe 20 minutes into it, coming back down the trail, and I hit a rock and tripped over it, just face planted into the side of this mountain on a trail. And I mean, it took the wind out of me, and I hit the rock that I stumbled on. Or actually, it probably wasn't the rock I stumbled on, it was the rock I fell on, because it was a whole distance away. That actually barely hit my hand, and mostly just landed right on my chest, right in my heart area. And I thought, oh my God, are you kidding me? I'm not going to dash my foot upon a stone. I'm going to dash my heart. For real? You're going to break my heart. I mean, it was so weird. And it caused such intense pain at that moment. And so many thoughts were coming up in my head of, oh my God. And actually, as I'm sitting here, I'm just now recalling that it wasn't, for the first time probably ever, it wasn't to go, oh no, why me, or any of that, or to say, how could you let this happen? It was to say, oh my God, okay, this really hurts, and I'm not sure if I've broken anything. Let me collect myself, because this really hurts like a mother. And ouch, it still hurts when I breathe. But, what can I do right now? Because I'm in a fairly remote area. It's not eventually I wouldn't be found. My car being in the parking lot, 7 hours later, would be noticed. But, hopefully we're not going to be here that long. So, I was already going into paramedic mode of, oh dear, So let's see what we can do to not get too caught up in the hysterics, not at all. But I really wondered if I wasn't seriously injured, because my chest took a major hit right there. And it was just the most ironic thing, because it wasn't the first thing to go, oh my God, oh no, how could you? Which sometimes it is. I'm going to be straight honest. Sometimes it is, why me? Why me? I couldn't have time for that, really, because my poor dog was looking at me like, hey, is this a new kind of play? And he was getting kind of goofy for half a second, and I had to pull myself together to take a very, shallow, short breath and go, just relax a second. Mommy's really, having a struggle here. Just stop. We're not playing. And I caught him in the eye and just, told him, no, we're going to be here a minute. You got to settle down. And I was trying to really keep myself calm. But I honestly, for the first time in, a while, I really didn't know if I was okay. Most of the time, I don't worry about that stuff anymore. I used to wonder all the time. I was in constant anxiety about something, about whether or not I was okay. Am I okay? And I really just don't live there with that. But damn, that took a minute, and I really wasn't sure. I went, oh my goodness, I think I've, probably bruised my heart or something. I took a major hit and I couldn't breathe, and I was like, oh my God, maybe I've cracked a rib. I was going through the whole list of all the horribles that it could be. And as I was checking them all off of, okay, well, it's probably not that, because I would be noticing more symptoms coming on than, what I'm noticing, and losing my ability to even think straight. much less be checking off the list of all the stuff. And so it was going through that process of, all right, call in all of the Reiki healing, all of the ascended masters, all of the healing that can be here with me to help pull me into alignment to how do I surrender to this process. And if it needs to be death, I guess, can we just make sure that my dog gets taken care of and somebody knows to feed my cats, and that I've gone to the great beyond, can we just make sure that that's taken care of? And then, the thought is, you just need to go with this and not be too concerned about anything. That's, that ultimate surrender thing, which I really can't say I love. I wish I could. I wish I could say that, just release and let go, release and let go. Sure, I'm willing to croak up here on this mountain. Sure, no problem. And I didn't really have a sense. Honestly, I didn't. I didn't feel like I was imminently right there. However, I felt like there was a very distinct possibility that I could have truly injured myself, because, we were going downhill and we were running. It wasn't just a little light jog either, because it was freaking downhill, and I like to give them little bursts, for the amount of time that I can do that. So we were, still at a part of the, excuse me, my ability, that I was going at pace pretty well, and, hitting that and just face planting. And I have no idea how it was that I didn't land on him, that I didn't break anything, and that, how is it that the rock I tripped on planted me exactly on the one that was about, left breast size, right there. Because when I picked myself up, I went, really? I should have taken a picture of it. That would have been more insulting probably. But it was just, I realized, as I was running through all this panic and like, oh my God, all this weird stuff, I'm thinking, all right, there's teaching here. I know there's teaching, and I'm in hella pain, like lots of it, and I'm having trouble breathing, and that's really disturbing me, and I don't really have a way to, call for help here. Somebody will eventually come by, but, it was starting to spin in some different directions. And so, I called in, please, I need all the healers that can be here to help heal me, to make the right decision and how I can be in alignment with this. And when things started calming down enough that I could, kind of pick myself up and breathe a bit, it took a few minutes. And as I was kind of collecting my senses and my ability that, I'm going to be able to stand up and start walking at a minimum and keep assessing this, I felt like I was in a tunnel by myself, like a deep dark hole of, I'm not sure where everybody is, but I asked for those people, those energies, those spirits to be here, and I have to trust that they are, that if I believe they're here other times, then why wouldn't they be here now? It was a real challenge in testing my ability to hang on to that and not hang on to the pain or the, what the hell, what were you doing? Why weren't you, to get into all kinds of blaming and how dare you? And, I'm out here with my dog, I'm trying to do the right thing. All of it that came up and was this whoosh, rapid fire through my mind. And really what I wanted to do was just say, this hurts, this really hurts, and ow. And so I found myself gravitating to that, all right, the reality of this moment is that I might be scared, I might be, mad, I might be angry, it might be a lot of things. However, what I'm most feeling is that this just really hurts, and I want to hug and I want to go home. And I felt like a kid, that big. I feel like I'm going to cry right now, but because it hurt so much and I didn't know how I was going to be able to take care of myself. And so for those few minutes that was going on, simultaneously I was, working, like having, my third person objective, observer person was kind of helping me to set myself up and, getting into all those different modes of operation, that one part of me needed to be feeling that and needed that validated. Yet I really, it wasn't going to help me at all to lie down there and get comfortable in that position, because if something was wrong, I needed to be moseying. So logic dictates, no matter how much I rely on spirit or intuition and all that, logic needs to dictate that no, don't park here, because unless you know that this is a down for a minute, then get that up and back on the horse, as quickly as is prudent. And so there was that simultaneous action happening. And thank God it did, because at some point, I just kind of got myself up and sat there and wept for a few seconds, a few minutes. I don't know. It wasn't a very long time, because it needed to just come out. It needed to come out, the frustration and the, whatever part of me that was just harmed in the past, and felt that sense, because that felt deep. Like, that's ancient stuff there. That's decades old, of things that are coming up. I mean, that's old. Those are old feelings of, I'm all by myself and oh no. I mean, I was upset and felt like a child. And thank God, the bigger part of me was taking over, like I said, the physical activity of, okay, let's, kind of sit up a little bit so that we can get better breathing on board. Crunched up in a ball on the ground is not facilitating the breathing so much. And so I just felt myself kind of gently pulling myself up, and yet simultaneously allowing that part of me that was so upset and so hurt and truly injured. I mean, it was painful. Haven't had that kind of pain in a minute, a minute. That one was noticeable. But as I got walking, after I had a very good cry, I mean, deep, soulful, boogers flying, the whole 9 yards, I mean, the whole 9 yards, I said, okay, I'm kind of confused. I said, I don't really, feel myself needing to ask, why me so much anymore. That was kind of an old reflexive something that came up that generally I don't ask that anymore, thank goodness, because it's more of a, okay, what am I to learn from this, rather than why me, well, it is me. It doesn't matter. Why me, as in poor me, as in why did this happen? What do I need to learn from that, and pull away from that state of, victimhood. And, that's not fair, because the why me has that victimhood and the unfairness attached to it, the injustice of why me and not someone else, or, why did I have to? It already has that attachment to it. So truly the greater teaching in that is, what do I need to learn from this? There's, obviously I didn't just, do this and I'm going to fall down, have all these major feelings and this eruption of things I haven't felt, for decades, or, millennia, for whatever, wherever that energy came piping in from. That didn't just come up for no reason. So what do I need to know about this, and how can I gain the most clear-cut understanding of myself and spirit and the alignment with that, so that I can get whatever injury may have happened. Some injury happened because I had a minimum have scrapes, on my knees and my elbows and, my hands and stuff. So at a minimum, and the injury to the muscles and stuff, at a minimum, there needs to be healing there to get the inflammation, the pain, et cetera, under control. So how can I set myself to be in alignment for that healing, and then get the teaching and the healing that's most appropriate in the highest vibration of how I can use that to really clear out any old baggage, karma, anything, whatever the blockage might be, because it was so profound. That reaction was so profound, and one that I generally don't have. And even on my worst days of the past, they didn't feel like that. I mean, that was something from way back. And so how can I really be in alignment so that I'm not just getting too attached to the physical feeling of that? The pain, it's very easy to get attached to physical pain because it hurts, duh. And I don't want to just believe that I can block it out. If I'm blocking it out, I might be just distracting myself and somehow get tolerant of the pain. And pain is an indication that there's a problem. So it's a fine balance. And so how can I really acknowledge this and bring in all the healing for this to allow it to start doing the work immediately, and get what I need to learn from this, because apparently there's something to learn, and there's something to unblock, and something to ungank here. What is it? And I had to really struggle a few times and work my way as I was going down the mountain with, well, was I not getting something that I was dashing my foot against a stone, all the way up? It happened 3 or 4 times. And I asked about that, what's the significance of this? This seems quite symbolic and rather metaphysical. And did I miss something? And, people would probably say, well, she's just making up stories. So be it. If it keeps me from losing my mind, then okay, I'm going to go with that. But it really felt very okay to me that, there are things that need to be learned, that if we gave you the pre-brief of that's going to hurt like a mother when it happens on your way down, you're going to hate that, or if we gave you, a pre-brief of, well, blah, 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 that gives some indication that I don't have free will, or that I'm being motored around by something in my mind that, is giving me the blow by blow. And that's quite monotonous, weird, and would be more of a script rather than, a free will life. And so the message I received was, you were given a precursor of the dashing the foot upon the stone thing, and there was work that needed to be done, and that's just the way it happened. Now, am I assigning blame or saying that, my spirit guides, God, angels, karma, there could be a lot of stuff attached to that if I allowed that to happen. There was already a lot of stuff attached to it with the reaction that I had of complete and total abandonment of, it was awful. And why would I want to attach more by believing that spirit or God or, karma, that some nasty force out in the ether somewhere did that to me as punishment? I don't personally believe that a loving presence is going to, deliberately place me in a position, because that's not how that works. That's like saying that gravity decided to become a higher gravity spot right there and take me down to punish me for somewhere where I got slick with gravity up the hill, where I got away with something somewhere else. So it's not really understood to me that way anymore, that karma is more just the balancing. And I can't say that I fully understand every single piece of that, other than there was a whole lot of emotional baggage and a whole lot of emotional damage and a whole lot of trauma that was unleashed in there on an emotional level, that physical, right there at my heart of all things. I mean, it couldn't have been more clear that if I just, scraped my leg or something, I might not have gotten the very clear indication in the metaphysics of that, because it was so very clear to me that was my first thought was, seriously, bro, right there, my heart, really? Is that it? Really? And believe me, I wasn't making fun of it then, and it's still, like I said, I'm not making fun of it now, because it does hurt. However, the irony or the lesson in it is that, yeah, there's always going to be some piece of you, some part of you that can evolve to a higher level. And it was time for that to move on, because that was, those were thoughts and flashbacky type stuff, almost like a CCTV movie just running through as that was all processing, making it my way down the hill. I thought I was losing my mind briefly, that why am I thinking all this? And it's like, that's all that's leaving. And I don't know, I don't have a hard and fast on it, but perhaps that was the way that was going to assist that in happening. Perhaps I was missing the opportunity as I was stumbling, I don't know. I just know that when I fell, all that unleashed, like a can got open and blah, all of it came out. And even still had some residue of that as I was navigating. It happened 2 days ago, and man, I was driving differently. I was walking Hondo differently. I wasn't left-handing much of anything, and turning over in my bed and, just really having a struggle for a few minutes here and there with it, and, taking as much Tylenol as one can take without killing their liver and other organs, and so, it gave the opportunity to take in what happened, and also take it in again, at those intervals, at different levels of it, but a higher understanding of it, that it's not meant to be punishment. It was a very long time before I could get over the idea of, how is it that we're made to suffer? I don't understand that. And it's really been explained to me that it's not meant to make you suffer. It's that we do suffer. You do suffer because you're not understanding that everything that does happen can be used for good. It's as simple as find the glass half full, and that can be a real bitch if I'm laying on the ground and my glass is half cracked and smashed. It's all the way full of glass and is all the way empty of water if it's smashed on the ground. And that's kind of how I was understanding that, and yet I do understand it now better, that find how we can use this, because it did happen. It's not always important to understand why. When it's important to understand why, Kate, we will show you why. We will tell you why. You will know why. You will get that. You will have it shown to you. The why part. It is more important often to get to the healing part, to get to it was broken out, it was the blockage was unblocked, and get to how are we going to navigate clearing that all the way out, because whoosh, the explosion happened. And if we don't do something with this, it's all that rubble is going to come back and just leave us where we were. So don't let us destruct this, paradigm in you somewhere, or unblock something in you somewhere and have you get stuck on that side of the rubble. Let's go ahead and work our way through all that, clear that all out. And then every time that you roll over in bed and go, oh, ow, then ask those questions again, and let's get to that. Well, why did that happen? It's not so important to know why always. And that's a tried and true. Honestly, it is that when I need to know something, I really get the answer to it, or I get a firm answer, period. I may not get the answer of why something in particular happened. I may get that is not something that if we gave that answer to you, it wouldn't make sense completely, and it may get you going in another direction. It's more important for you to deal with what's happening right now, which is to deal with those little inner parts that we're going, ow, 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 I'm in pain, this hurts, son of a bitch, I'm mad, whatever it is, all of those different little parts of me, those little fractal pieces of, me that were going, and had been abandoned and been left alone and had been traumatized and didn't understand that. That was a whole compartment of those monkeys that were just like, and let out. And that they need to be dealt with, because they're parts of me and they're parts of my consciousness, and they happen to my physical body. They happen to me, my personality, my energy, my body, my etheric body, my aura, my everything, my etheric space. It happened to every part of me. So for me to try to separate it out and just say, well, that happened and obviously, it came up and now it's clear. If it is still coming up somewhere for any reason, in any way, it's not really clear. So every opportunity as it's healing doesn't mean that as my physical body is healing that it's necessarily an old trauma response or PTSD or something that is remembering that and flaring up. I'm not having a flashback experience with every single one of those. However, it brings me the reminder of what those experiences were, to say, oh, okay, offer healing to that child, to that teenager, to that person, to that little me, whatever age it is, that's not the me today. I'm not experiencing that today. So whatever part of me, without having to get into the interview process of who that is, what happened, what experience exactly, blah, 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 that's not important. It's important more to offer that the soothing and the comfort and the direct pipeline to spirit that we are here, even in the pain and even through the pain. We are here. We never leave your side. And even though you don't understand, even though it can be difficult to believe, even though you get mad, even though you have all of your human emotion about it, we remain the same. Gravity remains the same. The principle of water leveling remains the same, no matter whether I get mad about a flood or, a drought or whatever. Or if I trip and fall, I cannot really truly be mad at gravity because I fell. I succumbed to the law. The law also is that loving frequency. So things are all happening to benefit me. They can benefit me. They can also conversely harm me injure me. If I were to get stuck in the, I fell down and that was terrible, look what happened, blah, 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 blah. I'm helping set up the energy for the greatest amount of injury that could have happened to settle right in there. And even if it didn't explode my heart or break a bone or do something weird like that, it definitely will pile in there and feel like I was victimized. And that is, in my opinion, almost more harmful than if I had broken a bone or something and gotten over it, quickly. If I allow that to settle in anywhere in my body, that I was victimized by some circumstance, that I was out there walking my dog and then we decided to run and of course I face planted and blah, blah, blah. If I cannot get out of that, that is injury, adding injury to the insult of what I was already experiencing from a throwback of stuff when I was a child where I had been injured and nobody knew, nobody cared, and I was all alone and didn't have the capacity to really truly deal with or understand what was going on in my world and what was happening to me. It's much more helpful, beneficial, and growing experience, a growthful experience for me to acknowledge that that is a throwback, and yet that's a part of me. I need to be the grown-up that I am, along with my connection to spirit that is always working for my good, always working to help me find the most beneficial way that I can deal with this. And that will bring the soothing and comfort not only to me as my grown-up, but to every other part of me that's obviously inflamed and upset about having taken a hit to the chest, along with all the other insult to my body, my person, my soul, etc., for every time it happened before that day. So it was a lot of stuff, and no, I still don't fully understand. I expect that if I ever say I fully understand something, I'm going to fully also need to admit that I'm fully full of shit, because there's too many layers that can keep going, too many new understandings. Things can always be observed and more deeply understood. We can always learn more, we can always go further in the understanding, and we can always get a more ascended thought. Now, I don't know that 5 years from now I'll still be thinking about this incident. I don't know. There are things that happened in my childhood that I still get things about, random stuff. Some of it, it's like the universe puts a little pin in that and says, yeah, that's going to be useful later, and I don't even know it until I'm reminded of it. Apparently there were pins put in having that experience of intense physical pain and no way to cope with it as a child, because we're going to cope with it now, and we're taking all of that at the same time. If we handle this very well, if we do this together with spirit, there, Kate, you do it with us, then it's going to help all of that energy back there that was piled on to each new insult that wasn't being handled well, wasn't being dealt with, and wasn't finding safety or comfort of any kind, and was living in terror constantly. So we're going to help all of those little fractals, all of those little child parts, all of those whatever psychology terms you want to use or whatever understanding you want to use, all of those parts and pieces of Kate, we're bringing all of that forward to this understanding. And when that's a done process, I will be dead more than likely. I mean, I think there's just probably not ever going to come a time when, trauma response, no. However, the idea that I will always need to or be learning something more intricate about myself, I should hope that that's always going to happen, because the day that it's not, that would be pretty boring. I don't want to quit learning about new rooms that are being built into my own mansion. Thank you. But, I can't really go well with building more mansions or more rooms onto my mansion if I don't really even know that I have a mansion or how big it is, if I don't even know what rooms and closets and all of that there are to the structure that I'm currently calling my home. And so I don't ever want to lose the wonder. I do very much appreciate that I've lost the not so wonder of looking at awful stuff, and I was a little bit surprised. Honestly, I was a little bit surprised and went, oh wow, I did not know that was a problem, and it gave me pause to feel a great deal of compassion for other people that I really did not know. I mean, I knew instantly the age of at least one of those experiences, and I went, oh shoot, yeah, and I don't know what the actual injury was of that. I remember the feeling of that and what age that was. And so, if I had that, a person that is spending a lot of time in self-development, which I do, if I have experiences like that, then other people who don't perhaps spend as much time on personal development or looking at those trauma responses very closely, they can be having those reactions out here that are quite painful. They're dealing with something from within that's causing them to act very untoward out here, and they have zero connection with that or zero understanding. As I said, I spend a lot of time digging around and ratting around in my closets and basement and all the rooms of this house here as much as I can get to. I want to, and that one caught me by surprise, so it gave me an opportunity to really find some more compassion and some more patience. It can be very challenging dealing with difficult people who are not really awakened to their own trauma response or their own ugliness or their own nasty feelings about me or you or whatever is not so much related to other people. It's related to us. When we're seeing someone projecting a lot of negative stuff on us, or they're really hating on us, that's really about them. And yet it can be very, very difficult to not get engaged with that, or to lose respect for it, or to lose humanity or compassion. And believe me, I've had some struggle with that myself, with how would you like me to try to have compassion for you and you're spitting on me or you're hitting me or you're all of these things, and yet I get it. That was an opportunity from the universe to have a moment of dealing with my own trauma, my own response, and then see how does that work when that's applied outside of you. Because if that's your experience, then that's at least one other person's experience on the planet too. It isn't just you. You're not some isolated, person having that kind of response. There's millions of people that react in those kinds of places, and that takes a whole lot of compassion from ourselves and from this spiritual realm or God, whatever anybody else would call that oftentimes we can't give ourselves. Other humans can't give it because we just don't understand it. We haven't experienced that. And if we don't really know how to give that to ourselves, or how to pipe into what can show us how to give it to ourselves and provide that lifeline of comfort and compassion and soothing, if we don't really know that, boy, it can leave us in confused places. I was confused for a long time, and feeling so frustrated, looking for human beings to meet that need and to show me how to meet it for myself. And it wasn't until being left to figure it out on my own. I didn't have a choice. I was not given a choice with that. We're all bugging out. You're going to be left here to figure it out, and in dramatic ways. And yep, caused some butt hurt and some, what the hell? And yet I'm very grateful, very, very grateful, because I better understand myself and how I react and respond now to things. And when there's some sort of a bristle, or there's some sort of something, or there's something major like, splat on the side of a mountain, rocky trail, you're gonna take notice of this, right? I mean, how could I not? But there wasn't anything shaming or judging or about it. That was me piping it back into the universe, going, what the, what's the matter with you? Why did you do this, for half a second? Because that's an old response that wouldn't understand it. A child has no way of understanding, why would something be hurting me? Why would I be experiencing pain? And where are the people who are supposed to protect me from feeling that pain? Children aren't supposed to be able to process that. They don't have that capability, especially as children. And in an ideal society anywhere on the planet, they wouldn't be having to. We would have children that were growing up with complete safety, and they'd be adults that were providing that safety to their children, and it would be that cycle. Unfortunately, we're in a different cycle. We're in a cycle where that's not what's being provided, and what we're learning new here on the earth is how to do that, get back to that understanding, or start it brand new, whatever your thoughts are, and where psychology's been or where it's going, all of that irrelevant. It is the paradigm we're pulling out of is one of a great deal of fear and a great deal of trauma and a great deal of installation of just bad programming into our little people who grow up to be big people who repeat the same pattern, because that's what we do. Human beings, we repeat patterns. It's not like it's unusual or weird. That's what we're used to. We learn by rote and we continue to go. go. And unless we know how to really look at, evolution of our soul, evolution of our consciousness, evolution of our ideas, our spirit, however it is that we want to look at it, self-development, if we just grow up the way we grow up and stop there and say, oh, well, that's back then. Well, everything that we learned from day of birth and even before, is relevant to how we present today. It's either that we do the exact opposite and we're over here, or we're run by it, or some little variations in between, unless we've really done the work to be nonplussed by things or non-reactive to things. When we respond from that adult place, from that healed place, we're no longer triggered back to or taken to those places without having the adult on board or spiritual, mentoring or whatever, words we would use to understand that, without having that guiding and directing us through that. If it's left to the child in us that reacts, you're asking whatever age that is to handle the situation through the adult experience, and it can get very freaky and froggy, as we see, because people are being pressed to those places where it's just the stress level of the world. It's where we are, and it's the push of this dying paradigm. It's the change of the whole system of the matrix breaking up, and it's pushing people right to their limits. And it's an opportunity to, how will you go forward? Will you go in ways where you take your fall and start asking those questions? Or are you gonna, do what has come naturally to you in the past, Kate, to go, why me? That's not fair. What about this? Well, that, are you gonna keep that same pattern? Because it's one that I haven't been falling into much, since I went through a major metamorphosis a few years ago. However, anytime it comes up and is threatening to take me back to that place for any amount of time where I might lose some ground, grab a hold of that quickly before that pony gets right on out of the barn, and you're gonna have to let that thing wear itself out, and it might be a minute before it slows down. And those kinds of episodes are ones where, I could easily find myself getting hysterical and then on the side of a mountain trying to navigate me, my hysterical self, my dog, get down, safely. And it just turns into a compounding problem, and it's not ultimately fixing what is the problem, which is some part of me that's terrified, that does not know how it's going to deal with the pain and the assault of what's already happened. Never mind the reinstallation of, oh my God, I just did this something that brought on that same level of pain, intensity, and abandonment and fear, that I'm still not going to handle it. So that old part of me is just reaffirmed with, yep, that's right. There's still nothing here to save you. There's nothing to keep you safe. There's just nothing. Oh, well, nut up and figure it out. And that makes Jill a very mean little girl. So, too much work has been done to keep me from, being a cranky, nasty individual, hating life, or being, checked out and unplugged because it couldn't handle it or make sense of it. Now, the greater work is try not to make sense of every piece of this, make sense of what is given to you to make sense of, and deal with the emergency, which is that little part of you that really needs to be reassured that spirit, God, you, whatever, the inside of me needs to hear, that is believable, that there is a parent structure, an older being that can handle what's going on and soothe that. And so, I also was, aside from asking for, healing help and ascended masters, I actually, held my chest and was doing Reiki, and just talking to myself that, yeah, I know this hurts. And it can sound really kooky, and that's okay, because it doesn't matter. It's more important for me to not trigger back to a place that's so young that it couldn't possibly function on the side of a mountain. And that felt like it was right there. And boy, was that a shuckaroo to figure that out, that really, I didn't know that I could get stuck there. Surprise. But again, stumbling up the hill, dashing my foot upon a stone. I'm like, is this a joke? Like, no, of course not. It's not some sick, weird game. That was the, we're bringing you into the relevance of, where we are with this. And could I have prevented that or something? I don't know. I wasn't given the answer. I was given you asked the question, and that was the precursor to, it's going to make a whole lot more sense when you go down the hill. So on that note, yeah, it's time for me and my bruised ego, my bruised heart, my bruised whatever it was, my bruised parts. Wondering, what did I do? Didn't do anything. You were running down the hill and gravity got the better of you. Gravity worked and you didn't get the better of gravity. Neither one of you got the better of the other. You succumbed to what the process was and why and all that. None of your business, and don't make it your business unless you know it's your business. So that's been one that I don't particularly like to hear. However, I do know that it brings me a great sense of freedom and satisfaction when I can truly let it go and go, okay, fine. And you'll let me know that if I need to know more about that, of course we will. Then that's where I go with it. So I hope that all makes sense. Take care. Bye-bye.